Hi, today we're going to talk about the similarities of the ancient Greeks Garum and the heritage food of the Cantonese. So we would say that the Cantonese Budu is the ancient Malays version of Garum. As pointed out earlier in my videos about the Uncanny Connections between ancient Greek and ancient Malays, I said that we don't know for sure how these two forms of condiments, fish sauce, existed. One theory of mine is that they shared for the love of food. The Greeks were merchants, so they stayed over, and for the longest while, what went on my mind was that the Greeks were the one who sailed to the ports of the Malay lands, ancient Malay lands like Kedah, or they are numerous. So, but I forgot to point out that the ancient Malays were great seafarers too. They built great ships, and there is no point to deny that the Malays have gone to the ports, other ports of the world, even up to the ports in ancient Greece or Asia Minor, and they have met. So although in most part the ancient Malay seems to, at least literally, for the modern people who would say that, how come you get so confused? Because in the surviving literary manuscripts, it seems that everyone is lumped together in a term they call Rome, R-O-M, instead of R-O-M-E, that sort of thing. So that's one confusion. But when we talk about Garum or Garum or Garos, although people say that it is mainly about Roman later, but evidence has suggested that it started much earlier. And from all the existing fish sources in the world, especially in the Asian part of the world or region, the ancient Malays version or recipe stayed close. I think if not the only one. It's not that hard. It's just about salt and fishes, mainly anchovies. But then even then, the versions vary. People point out somewhere along the borders of mainland China, where the fish sauce has probably existed for thousands of years, but the nature of the fish sauce is different. It's clear. It's almost like distilled. It looks classy, and no doubt, in modern rendition of the Garum, reinterpreted or bottled Garum, some of it, if not most, are very clear from Greek people nowadays. But although it looks probably to some gross, unsavory, unsightly, horrid to some, but there's no denying that pictures of Garum are that murky, brownish concoction, in a vat with bits and pieces of decomposing. It's not rotten, but fermenting anchovies or fishes. So that's the kind of condition, look, that you can see in Cantonese Budu, which they have taken as a heritage from their ancient ancestors. In Malaysia, one of the more famous personnel behind Budu, or the Malays version of Garum, is the late Ismail Juso. He started it back in 1978, so it's been more than 30 years. He passed away in 2019, and he wills it that his sons, his children, continue the business. And he was quoted to say that he didn't get it right on the first try. He was a fisherman, and he noted that there were a lot of anchovies among the catches. So it goes two ways at times, and they don't have that big facility, storehouse or warehouse, freezer, which I saw in the K-drama Rendezvous something during the pandemic, where they help farmers, usually with crops, but also with sea catches, fish and seaweeds, that sort of thing. That's a good program with Paik Jae Wong. I make out the name wrong. So in the Budu business, Mr. Ismail Juso tried to make Budu. I mean, he was not the first one. It seems like that because his brand of Budu, Chap Ketere, Ketere is, I forgot the English name. It's supposed to be Gajus. Ketere is Gajus. If it comes to mind, I will share it. So his brand of Budu became the biggest, and it kind of conquered the market. I cannot really say that conquer, but because the large part of the society in modern Malaysia doesn't fancy Budu or eat Budu. I mean, some say it's their loss, but to the connoisseurs, the brand name Ketere is synonymous with something they search, look for, and expect. I think this mostly pertains to quality, safety of the food, cleanliness, quality, and I think although some people look down on Budu and say it's gross and people don't expect cleanliness and everything, but to be accepted in the larger market, one have to follow the good manufacturing and production SOP and practices, and I think that's what made Budu Ketere a mainstay and reap the success that it deemed deserving. Back to how he got it right. He tried to make Budu many times because he realized that the demand was always there, and I think that's the most important thing. He realized that Budu have its own command. People still want Budu, so he tried, but I think the first few batches came out bad. The smell, it stinks to the high heaven. It's rotten. It ferments, Although some may jest that the Korean kimchi, mostly cabbage, but there are other versions are about rotten cabbages. But it is fermentation, and because kimchi is more globalized, People are more curious about it. People take it as how we call it, something to try, something novel. Whereas Budu, in modern, it tries very hard. It tries very hard to appear on tables, but it gets shoved aside unless treasured by the people who really know about the delicacy. There are people who take jibes at people who consumes Budu. It's not a one or two occurrences. It happens, and in the modern day, Malaysia, at times, not all the time. We should be neutral. We should be more open, but at times we could feel that they connotate or say that people who eat Budu are almost uncivilized, or they eat rotten fish or something unsavory, rotten, or something like that. So they never try. But of course, this is small. But how small, we don't know. There are perceptions. But little did they know. If I'm proven right, that the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, and then the bigger, can I say it, bigger Roman civilization, and the rest of the world have treasured the unadulterated version of fish sauce, not the clear one of them. People can enjoy it in many ways. The Greeks and Romans have been known to mix it with vinegar or wine, but the main original state was it is Garum, and it looks a bit much, very much the same as the original Budu. For Kelantanese or the ancient Malay Budus, they add this 3 ingredients to make it a good and savory side dish. It's not a side dish, it's something like chutney, where they add shallots, small red onions, lime juice, and a little bit of chili. In modern Malaysia, we call it chili padi. Paddy chilies. It's smallish, not that small, but it's quite small. And they add the green ones, and it's biting. It has some kick to it. So these 3 added to the a small plate, not a big plate, a small plate of Budu. Some may add some pieces of boiled fish to it. Some say that why it's because Budu is already fish, but maybe to add more protein to it's cheaper. Boiled fish, because it can stay out for a longer time before rotting. So it kind of adds some dimension to it too. So we haven't really acknowledged how big Garum was in the ancient Greek Roman world afterwards. There are talks and writings about how they price it. It becomes something like wine. It was the second most expensive or look after commodity, after, I forgot what it was. It gold? Was it pepper? So it was sought after, and I think that it kind of put up a statement to people who look down on the Malays or the ancient Kelantanese who eats Budu from time to time. You don't have to eat it every time. You're allowed to eat other things, but I think some of the Cantonese may stick to it because it's their heritage, and I think gajus or ketere is the another word for cashew nuts, but it's actually the whole fruit itself, the cashew fruit. So that's that. And what I'm trying to say is that people don't realize that maybe there are more to it about this relationship between Greek Garum and the ancient Malays, Budu. And as I've pointed earlier, people don't share food or don't treasure it much. For people who like it, it's something that, it's good to have on rainy days, and nothing else fancies your palate, and Budu or Garum really hits the spot, so you just don't eat that alone, you eat it with other meal, or most of it is rice and salad. In Malay they call it ulam, a variety of herb leaves eaten with some bits of chicken or meat, and then with rice, because they eat with the hand, and then they dab a little bit of the Budu concoction with the red shallots, the lime, and the chili paddy. It gets things going, it opens up appetite. I mean, that's what most agree with. Because there are a lot of it's not really food critics, it's just some part of the modern Malaysian society who made it a crusade, to say on several things about people's choice of food and dishes or condiments. It gets quite vile at times, as a testament or brand of backwash state of community, undeveloped, that sort of thing. So they were researchers that were taken to study Budu. And interestingly enough, this kind of approach where you don't go on tongue lashing each other for the longest of time, but instead came with something concrete. It was the same thing that happened with when some parts of the society were adamant to pinpoint that the Malays lived on trees. They were merely immigrants. They are, they are not the owners, or many skirts along the line. I think with Budu was that authentic researches have been carried out, and it pointed out how, because it's made mainly of fish, how it is a good source for brain food, and it is also deemed worthy enough to have anti-cancer properties. And the thing is with Budu in Kelantan itself, it's not only the Malays who are involved in the production or manufacturing Budu. There are other races too. It's something that has been appreciated and has not been really recognized by the more, urbanites. And I think that is also a fallacy, because when you point out something like a city, you can't really say that it's the consensus of the city people, because city people also consist of a lot of different humans with different desires, preferences, and tastes. And there are people who do fancy Budu, even they are city people. And one of the, it's not really a latest discovery, it was back in 2011. A group of students from Polytechnic Kota Baru, it's a vocational school, founded ways to make it into powdered form. I think because most Budus are produced in bottles, glass bottles mainly, so it's hard for people who wants to not export it, but it's kind of like that, right? Because they are traveling, maybe students or people who are on touristy visit, but mostly for working too. The Budu bottles can't get past immigration at the airport, so Mr. Ismail from the Budu chapter tried to make it in sachet. So the students in this Kota Baru vocational school in 2011 have made the powdered form available. But as of today, I don't think it has really entered the market in full force. On the Budu front itself, there are varieties. I myself can acknowledge that it's quite a hassle to prepare the shallots, the chili padi, the small chilies, and the lime, which you have to squeeze it out to make that state of preparedness, which mothers or housewives recommend. So the Ketere brand Budu came out with a version of Budu that's already added mixed with tamarind juice, so it has a little bit of sour taste, so it mimics the kind of the blended Budu concoction that we want. There's also other version with pre-mixed with chili and that sort of thing. Miss Shah from Food Portal website Perio shared that Budu tends to be confused with fish sauces like Indonesia's kejap ikan. There's also the Japan's ishiru and Korea's ekjot. But she insisted that they don't really or necessarily belong in the same category. She pointed out that kejap ikan, ishiru, and ekjot, and I think for the most part the Vietnamese nok phangs, I don't know how to pronounce it, are used mainly for cooking. But Budu itself is neither a sauce nor a seasoning, it's a condiment. You don't use Budu in the kitchen but at the dining table. But this argument doesn't really stand up strong, proud and tall, because what I read from the Singaporean news outlet article was that the Vietnamese fish sauce is also used for condiment, where they add a little bit of chili and people dip things, dishes in it. So that's that. There are also a variety of versions of Budu around Malaysia or the Southeast Asian Malays. In Sarawak, there's a sauce called rusik, and it is also eaten in the Riau Islands, which used to be a part of the Malaccan Empire. There's the in the Philippines, where there are factories that makes Budu, There's particularly in Tagalog, Bagong, and they also eat it with a squeeze of lime and some mix of chilies in it. One interesting development about Budu, but this is not recent, it has been carried out years ago, was how people pointed out, the researchers pointed out about the anti-aging or whitening effects of consuming Budu. It says that it promotes the collagen production, and some variety of cosmetic products were actually produced, but I don't think it reached the commercial aisles that I know of. But the researchers came out with it, but I don't think it managed to convince good enough investors or backings and grants. So you see, Malays that champions Budu have made that, either this is for their loyalty for Garum of the Greeks. They didn't want to give it up. They didn't take insults lying down. They try to find evidences, they try to reason, and if you don't call this long lost love or a great relationship, friendship with the ancient Greeks, I don't know, but it could also be the other way around. But I'm also quite cautious in doing that, although it takes a while to get the processes right, so it doesn't stink, it has the nice and good consistency, the feel, the taste, but fairly making garum or Budu is not that hard. So for me to say that the ancient Greek probably have learned it from ancient Malays might sound preposterous, because people have regarded the ancient Greeks as being pioneer in a lot of things. But as I've pointed earlier about, people, instead of prolonging the argument, went on into scientific researches to validify Budu. The Malays, particularly one in Kelantan, the USM, a team of researchers led by Professor Dr. Zafari now, because there were a lot of people or groups who I've pointed out labeled the ancient Malays as not being originated in Malay land itself. So the researchers led by Professor Dr. Zafrina carried out researches, not really at first to prove that, because she's more about forensic studies, that sort of thing, but one of her discoveries led to her conclusion that it could be used to find relations, to find the hidden answers, to where the Malays might come. I think she did it with the backing of her university, her team, and it was a risk. But what turned out to be, as most research that goes on, we don't know how the result will come out. So the thing with that is that the results that came out was that the Malay DNA, specifically the Cantonese, have the oldest DNA among the Malays in the Malay world, the Southeast Asia, but also the second oldest in the world after Africa's DNA. So although it's I'm cautious enough to say that probably the ancient Greeks learned it from ancient Malays, because you see, compared to the modern day Greek, the modern day Malays, specifically the Cantonese, who are not that modern because they kind of preserve, whatever heritage, ways of life they had. They continue Budu consumption much more. I would say that Garum or Garos in the Greek lens, modern Greek, is a bit of novelty. I can say that Budu is still a kind of novelty, but those who consume it diligently, almost at every table, would adamantly say that, it's not so. It's something staple. So it depends. So maybe in parts of Greece and not just touristy restaurants of eating places, Garum, Garos is still a part of the main dish. It's not a main dish. It's a condiment that accompanies the courses. Although I would lean on to that the Cantonese really persevered or brought along the Garum Budu heritage up to the present day, and that's where the researchers, the modern production facilities, I think that's because maybe that's their heritage, their pride. But it can also be, as I said, because it was a good friendship with the ancient Greeks. They've shared this know-hows, and it saves, because it's about fishing itself. You can't go out fishing every day of the year in Malaysia. In ancient Malays too, because of the monsoon. Sometimes the seas are rough, sometimes you get a big haul or catch, sometimes you don't. I think for people who catch fish, the fishermen, either in ancient Greek or Malays, they know how hard it is, and because they don't have the freezer facilities as if in modern times, I think they appreciate of not wasting food resources. And it's not just about money, but about wastefulness. So if it is really from the Greek know-hows and local geniuses of Greek, and they brought it to ancient Malays to share that, and as I've said earlier, they don't share something valuable like that, food, with somebody that they can't trust, respect, and be friends with. What I'm trying to drive in here is that most probably the Greek version of Garum or Garos, as is referred to by the later Romans, I think that is the closest to the Cantonese Budu, which they inherit from their ancestors. Because from what I gathered from the comments from the later Romans, they said that the Greek versions have whole fish in it, and that they commented that it's gross and all. Well, the case with Roman is this: they choose to deviate, they choose to change the recipes, making varieties. There's nothing wrong with that. It's innovation. So they went from murky, muddy, browny, chocolatey to something more clear. I think the description about garum was amber-like liquid, price as expensive as gold, as much as 500 per bottle, so on and so forth. But it has not always been so. The original Garos or the original Garum of the Greeks are that using whole fish, whereas the accounts about Romans Garum, which is the accounts that we are more familiar with in the modern times, modern gourmet articles, reviews, because the Roman succeeded. Is that the right word to say it? I mean, it came after the Greek, so it's everywhere, and nothing much survived about Greeks Garos or Greeks version of Garum. It's kind of like Romans took over everything, and as for something as niche as this fish sauce, I think they kind of made the original Greeks Garos kill over, and they kind of take over. You know, they kind of redefine it, brand it as their own. I think there's nothing strange about that, but I think what I'm getting, I mean, what we're all getting is that the Romans, if I'm not wrong, because I'm no expert in this Roman Greek, how to call it, chasm or rifts. I think what I get is that the Romans want to distance themselves from the, that the Romans came from Greeks. The whole shebang of it. Some say it's some identity crisis. Some say it's crisis management. I don't know if it is about power, it's about influence, it's about authority, but they went all out to redefine that it's Roman, it's not Greek. In a way, it's a natural course of things because Romans were bigger, and one can say that Greek is a part of Roman. But then some say, or the Romans themselves, that Greek is just one small part of Roman, a conquered part, something like that. Some say that the Greeks made for the powerful elites of the Romans, but Romans say not so, because the Roman Empire spans around, thousands and thousands of kilometers, here and there, everywhere. So the ethnicities varies, not just from Greeks. So it is said that the Romans changed things, even up to changing the characteristics or what they demand from their pantheon of deities. I mean, they kind of, I don't know what's the right word, took it from the Greeks' pantheons, but they changed it. Some say that to fit their current needs, which is about discipline, which is about loyalty, that sort of thing. So for the case like Juno, who is more known as Hera in Greek, Juno became more warlike. At least this was the impression I got from reading Percy Jackson series, where there is a clear shift when the Greeks, came into contact with the Roman side of things, stories, challenges, so on and so forth. So it is said that the Romans gave the dregs, the cheaper version of garum, the leftovers in the Roman times, to their servants, whereas the clearer liquids were given to the rich. But I wonder if the clear liquid garum and the normal Greek version of garum or garos is still the same. We can also blame it on the marketers, ancient brand consultants, and greedy Roman capitalists. Maybe one day they say that, how can I make a hell of a lot of money from this Greek rotten fish sauce? And voila, an industry was born. Roman garum sites, the productions. Can we call it like a production facility? Is it a factory? I mean, it exists in Pompeii and Spain, among other things, but it is said that they are driven out of dwellings or city perimeters, more because of the smell. So they were asked to build their facilities on the outskirts or further from where people live. But we are here to talk about Greek, and I think that nobody else preserved it, treasured it, and almost in the original state of what is supposed to be Garos and Garum, like how the ancient Malays did it, which is now survived by the Cantonese. In Kelantan, whole fish with salt is used to ferment it. Later, much later, pepper and sugar were added, and that's about it. Fermentation takes its due course from 6 to a year. One can say whether it's loyalty, affection, or because garum was actually originated here in the ancient Malay ports or fishery industries. The Cantonese, through eons of trials and errors, starting or over again, never giving up, have kind of perfected the state and recipe for this garum of the East. Now it is mass scale produced with a GMP, good manufacturing practice, all clean and accepted quality to warrant all there is to certification, including halal. It's available in modern most. I notice it that that they are Budus. There's this Malay version of garums here. Before, previously, it was not all that prevalent, but nowadays I can see more of it, and it's kind of strange, but acceptable. It's good, but it's not like I'm going to finish a bottle, and a bottle is not that big. It's about a palm size or smaller in height. It's small. They make it small nowadays. Apart from the so-called sachet or powdered versions from R&D, that ones, those things have not survived in the market or have not been capitalized yet. Yep, it is still an acquired taste. It is still deemed as novelty, and I think that it is understandable that some misguided souls often equates Budu or this garum of the East with the state of poorness and destitution. I think it's because it's the smell, the stinkiness, but that's about it's not what the modern people say. I think at some point they are allowed to think that way. It was a manufactured train or processes of thinking that was allowed, or a psyop from the modern food manufacturers, the easy convenient foods, that want to sell their version of food. It's like, the margarine and butter information war, which for the longest of time margarine won all of it, until only recently, that butter is actually safe, natural, and came from a known source. It's from cows, nothing more natural than that. So it's about that. When you look at the case for kimchi, almost everybody knows what is kimchi, and it's an acceptable heritage food, and it gains a local global traction. Everybody's curious about it, and although not everybody eats it or tries it, but it's not scornable. People don't look skewed idly when people eat it. It is deemed adventurous, and it's called very K-pop thing to do. So I think what the Korean did decades ago is bearing fruit to normalize the global views that kimchi is not, just because it is fermented, ages under the wintry. I guess that's how they did it in the past. Smells a little bit, as how fermented things are, like Budu or sauerkraut. But what they did was, something aggressive, but not as aggressive. It's what they call soft power. I don't know whether they made it compulsory or was it a pack. Almost all drama featured kimchi. Maybe not all, but it's a common thing. The other thing is soju, which is quite bad. The recklessness of drinking is good. It's a merry thing to do. When you're down, you drink soju. It's too much. The drinking thing really has to be curbed. But kimchi, on the other hand, is healthy-ish. Actually healthy, no doubt about it. So, but the taste, is acquired. But then, if you can close your eyes, stomach, and acclimatize to that flora of, all the good things in it, and I think that you'll reap a lot of health benefits. And decidedly, it's sad that Budu has not gotten all the backing and resources to make it more mainstay, even in the local Malaysian celluloids, or even in modern social platforms. But I think that's the way to go. Make it as normalized as kimchi is or was from the Korean way of doing things. Although not all Koreans eat kimchi, there are some, but even then, it is almost like frowned upon. We don't want that. Everybody can choose, and not everybody in Korea eats kimchi all the time. It's a side dish. It's a I don't want to be wrong in labeling or explaining things, but I think that as much as modern Korea is, it takes kimchi with them while they're progressing. They fought hard for it when everything is so westernized, Americanized. They fought hard to make it unique when people are claiming that kimchi is not unique to them and everything. They fought hard for it. They make it. I think you can give a big applause, a round of applause to all the actors, the producers, script writers that made sure to include. Maybe at one point it is a novelty. It looks like, they eat kimchi, but later on it's accepted as, you eat rice with kimchi, or they even drink soju, alcohol, with kimchi at times. So it's become normalized. It's become acceptable, and that is supposed to be the way. But it is understandable that people react differently with something they don't know, and as something a little bit foreign like kimchi, it needs some acclimatization, that normalization phase, and the popularity and the good content, good quality of K-drama, K-movies and songs, and the personalities behind it, the actor, actresses and models and singers that made it, they incorporate the kimchi into their live feeds. I don't want to be wrong and say that it's not that they featured kimchi on it, but it's there. So I wish the same thing can be done with Budu, but as of now, it's a very novel thing and a small percentage of people. But I might be wrong, because the Budu Chap Katere, the Katere brand, became the largest manufacturer in Malaysia at one time. I don't know now. I tried to find some statistics, and but the only one that I got, then I was a little bit confused, because it seems that Kuala Lumpur outfit is taking charge of it. So I don't know how to get to the root of it, because the Katere brand was supposed to be a Cantonese native who started it from the ground up, and then he was supposed to say in his will before he passed away in 2019 that he wants his children to carry on the business. That's way back in 2019, not that far, but I guess that's the world before and after the pandemic. So if I may just summarize, the stubbornness of the Cantonese, the ancient, who treasured their ancient Malay heritage, when they were harassed with labels saying that they are immigrants on their own lands, they got researchers. It's not that they summoned researchers, but at that opportune time, researchers from USM founded genome studies, DNA, that founded that the Cantonese DNA is as old as 60,000 years old, the second oldest in the world, for example. And with Budu, or this Garum of the East, researchers from far and wide, German, China, Japan, have lauded a lot of its benefits. There's a good amount of B12 in it. There are antibacterial thingy in it that could prevent diarrhea, stomachache, and it's good for the kid. And as I've shared earlier, it's good for the skin, anti-aging, and some researchers have come up with a set of cosmetics line, but I've never seen it in commercial aisles. I think it hasn't made it. Maybe it's a novel research, it made into that production, but in a niche scale, not really for the mass. There are a lot of minerals in it: iron, calcium, magnesium. There are antioxidants in the form of isoflavone, vitamin C, E, carotenoids, and it also lowers, lowers cholesterol. It's good for people who wants to be on a diet. It's not just the Budu. This Garum of the East completes the taste, with the umami, making the eating experience more making it more satisfied. It is also anti-cancer. These are some of the raves, that have been founded, by researchers and people who wanted to find what's with Budu. And although there are, as I said, a lot of surviving materials and a lot of subsequent modern writings are about Garum, not Garos or Greek's Garum version of things. And one of the writer of the, the Bible of Garum, I have to find the name yet, it's not on top of my mind, said that even she can't really pinpoint the exact place where Garum should be. Although I think it's apparent to me whether it is a condiment, whether it is seasoning things and everything. That's where Budu, the Cantonese version of Garum, is different. It's not really for seasoning, also, although you can, like the other clear liquids of the fish sauces produced by neighboring Asian countries. But it is more like a what we call panchicha, something for dipping. It's a condiment. It's full of umami, and scientific discoveries has ascertained that it has good enough properties, that it's not just mere rotten fermented food. So that's that. Thank you for listening, and that's the mysterious Garum of the East. I present to you the Budu of the Cantonese people. Thank you.